Poinsettia, Chapter 9. Gavin walked the lonely, empty Strathaven streets, examining shops that were many hours since closed, save the occasional pub. In the cold weather, everyone was wisely inside. He could hear the songs of drunken gaiety in full swing within. A part of him wished to join them. It had been a long time since he enjoyed a good Scottish drink in the company of a busy pub. He refrained, however, and continued down the road. Yet he ended up stopping once again at a rugged building. It had been partially rebuilt over the years and had become an upscale tavern, but not too upscale. It was more than a pub, but less than a formal restaurant. Gavin frowned. This brought back such sad memories. He ran his hand along the quasi-quality paint on the wall. Gavin peered into a window of one of the shops. Lovely tailored suits dressed mannequins. The suit wasn't particularly for sale, but was meant to show off the professional quality of the haberdasher inside. This was the best haberdashery in town, and a place Gavin was not ashamed to spend a good deal of money in improving anything about his appearance. However, a shopping trip for haberdashery was not what the vampire had in mind on this early evening in late November. He was waiting. "Lord McIntyre!" came a call. A smile came to his face as he turned to see the dear young Clementine, a budding sweet 16 beauty, holstering up her skirt and petticoat, revealing a bit of her bloomers, as she rushed towards him. This gown was a big improvement over her Empire gown. Of course, Gavin had purchased it for her. Mutton-leg sleeves were covered at the shoulder by a cloak. She wore a corset beneath, accentuating her lovely figure, if not defining it. Her layered skirts dragged a little behind her. "Forgive me for my tardiness, my lord," she panted, catching her foot on a loose cobblestone and falling forward with a cry. She closed her eyes tight, bracing herself for the fall, but it never came. Slowly she opened her eyes to find she was in his arms. How had he got to her so quickly was beyond her. "Thank you, Lord McIntyre. You grow a little too excitable, but I suppose I cannot insult such a grand enthusiasm. Much of the nobility lack such a gift. It is true, then, that people desire what it is they cannot have, and appreciate it much more when they do." "If you say so." She settled herself back on her feet. "What is it we shall do today?" "It is a lovely evening, dear Clementine," Gavin smiled, raising his hand as if to bring her attention to the darkening sky. "We still hold a few hours of operating hours, so shall we gallivant about the shops? This dress is lovely, but one simple dress is only enough for commoners. Come now, and let us mold you into nobility. I will have you fooling every wealthy body in my Yuletide ball. Everyone will believe you are a valuable, well-bred aristocrat." "You are being so generous," she said with a little saddened expression. "I've still not figured out how this benefits you, or how I can ever repay you for all of this. This is a very expensive hobby." "You consider yourself a hobby?" "Do you not?" Gavin blinked and then let out a laugh. "My, you are quite a sharp lass. Do not fret about such things. My reward will be the finished product." He offered her his arm. She gracefully took it. "These shoes are killing my feet." "Stiffen up, lass," Gavin chuckled, escorting her into the shop of the local hatter. "Such grace comes at a price. Most of the time, it's at the cost of pain and discomfort. Still attractive to you?" "I'm no mere delicate flower," she said, releasing his arm to wander to a display of hats. "Indeed, delicate flowers are easily overtaken by weeds," he sighed with bemusement. He examined a rack of men's hats before turning to watch her. It was only a few minutes before he was at her side again and placing a large hat on her head. It was of eloquent design with lace, ribbon, and even a plume. You look marvelous, my dear Titania. Titania now, am I? She chuckled. I feel more like Mother Goose in this thing, not some magnificent fairy queen. You don't like this one? I'm afraid not. I feel too silly. It's like a child wearing her mother's shoes. I never wore my mother's shoes, he said nonchalantly. She playfully tapped his arm to scold him. Oh, Gavin! He perked, amazed to have heard his first name from her. She apparently caught on to his surprise and brought her white-gloved hands, much newer and fancier than her old hand-me-downs, and brought her fingers to her face. Oh, my! Forgive me, Lord McIntyre. No, you're fine, he chuckled. I was just a little surprised. Would you rather I did not? He thought a moment before he smiled softly. I think I actually prefer if you did. My name sounds so wonderful coming from your lips. Do charm me some more. Now you're teasing me, she sighed. He merely chuckled, putting the gaudy hat back on the rack. Is there one here that you prefer, Clementine? She nodded, reaching for a simple straw sailor hat with a little ribbon around it. This one. It's small, simple, and very lovely. Quasi-noble, Gavin sighed in jest, but if that is what you want, I will oblige. I feel so greedy, she sighed. Then I insist, he replied. You are, after all, my project. Do you have to say such a thing so loudly? It's embarrassing. I embarrass you? No, it just doesn't feel very good to be called a project. I feel like a burden or something. Gavin chuckled. You know what you need? He asked, placing the hat on her head and scratching his chin. You need a parasol. Every proper young noble lady should carry a frilly parasol. You normally have me out in the evening, Gavin, Clementine replied. What would I need one for? Appearance. I have things I never actually use either. It's all for show, my dear. Show off your wealth. People admire those of whom have money to throw away so frivolously. Such exchanges had been normal between them, and throughout this evening it continued. Gavin purchased a lovely parasol for her. He purchased jewelry, earrings, necklaces, grand jewels and pearls, rings, accessories for her hair. Nothing was off limits. She refused to wear these items, insisting they were for another night. It would do no good to break them all in now, if you are wishing to show me off at your Yuletide ball, she told him. Nobility that high wouldn't waste time wearing a ball gown to more than one event. Gavin bowed before her, offering his hand and taking her to an expensive restaurant on the edge of town. There he allowed her to dine on the most expensive and exquisite meal. Of course, it was more than she was capable of eating. She frowned as she looked at the remaining spread. Forgive me, you have been so generous with your pocketbook, but there is no need to explain. Proper young noble ladies never finish their plates anyway. She tilted her head. They do not? You see, the nobility are so wealthy that we can afford to waste. This concept is so foreign to the lower classes who scrounge for every coin. I'm not sure if I should be insulted or not. Are you not nobility when you company with me? I suppose so, she sighed. But there isn't much left to do, is there? The local pubs will be about all that remain alive, and respectable people do not frequent such places. Well, I suppose it depends on the taste of the individual, Gavin explained. I suppose there is nothing more to do than to be a proper gentleman and escort your ladyship home. How proper, she laughed. The couple walked calmly up the frozen streets. They chatted rather idly, seeming to forget about everything about them. In this relaxed sort of environment, it was much easier for them to talk like human beings, instead of like people from separate classes. However, their gaiety was cut short. From the cold night came a warm breeze and a flickering brightness. Commotion had stirred about the inn, which was engulfed in flames. Clementine's eyes went wide. "Papa!" she screamed, rushing forward and tripping on her skirt, falling further forward. Gavin caught her once again and pulled her back. "Stay back, Clementine. This is dangerous." "Papa could still be inside," she cried. "I have to find him. Papa!" "It's too dangerous," Gavin insisted, pulling her back again. "Stay back here." "What about Papa?" "Let the fire brigade deal with the flames." "They have to find Papa," she insisted, beating on his chest. He grabbed onto her wrist as she wailed. He peered down at her distress. Slowly, he rose his eyes to look at the flames as the fire brigade tried desperately to extinguish it. He pulled Clementine back and placed her into an alleyway. "Stay here." "Where are you going?" "I'm going to find him," he said, beginning to rush for the inn. Clementine grabbed his arm. "No! You'll be killed!" "Stay here. I will find him," he growled, startling her. He left her at the alleyway and rushed past members of the fire brigade and into the blaze, hearing them call for him. The heat was intense. He snarled as he had to shield his eyes from the light. Pieces of the building began to collapse inwardly. It was hard to sense much of anything aside from smoke. But he tried, picking up a very faint scent of cooking flesh. Carefully, he tread between the roaring flames until he found the cooking corpse sitting at the table, a toppled-over bottle of alcohol and the liquid wax of the candle on the table. Gavin could tell how this whole blaze began just from that. He came closer and was unable to sense any life from this blackened body. He snarled yet again, finding he had to retreat. He marched like a witch from hell from the burning building, carrying not even a scratch or burn or scruff, amazing the fire brigade and an onlooking Clementine. She rushed to him, running into his chest. "Gavin, did you find him?" "Yes." Isn't he?" He lowered his head. "I'm afraid so, Clementine. I'm sorry." "But look at you. Oh, are you all right?" "I told you. I am fine." "That was foolish, what you did. You could have been killed." She saddened. "But I am so grateful." He held her close, allowing her to rest her face into his chest and weep. "It's all right. He may be in a better place now." He would not tell her the details of what he had found. Why upset the child more? "What am I going to do? This was my home. I can't do it all by myself," she wept. Gavin lifted her face to look into it, pulling out his handkerchief and wiping away her tears. "You can come and stay with me at McIntyre Castle, Clementine." "Please, I do not want to impose. I already feel so guilty as it is." "You don't really have any other options open now, do you?" he pointed out. "You're still very naive to the ways of the world, and you have no one to care for you. The least I can do, dear Clementine, is take you in and give you a place to stay. Come now. There is nothing more we can do here until the fire is extinguished. Return with me to my carriage, tied nearby. We will ride to my home, where you can weep, rest, and be enveloped beneath my wings, away from this bitter cold." She nibbled on her finger, unable to think of any other excuses. She allowed him to wrap his arm about her and take one of her hands as they began to head towards the carriage he had parked. Perhaps, as a bit of a bitter sarcasm, the frozen powders of snow began to descend upon the town.